we have to create the right vibe, you know, the energy, and everybody at the organization has to feel so privileged to be here. It's no other way.
Thanks for listening to the Purely Arsenal podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at Purely Arsenal FP for all the latest Arsenal podcasts.
Welcome to another edition of a Purely Arsenal sit-down podcast. It's our final episode of 2024, and we're here to discuss a 1-0 win, massive win over Ipswich Town. Neil Shah is here, and he was there. Hello, Neil. How are you? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Oh, I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Very, very good, and great to have you. Going to listen to you a little bit about the enthralling atmosphere I could hear from my TV screen at that stadium. I think I could hear your individual voice in there in the first half a little bit. I think you were a little bit disappointed with the atmosphere, which would be understandable, but I think maybe part of the game state has got to do with that. Also joined final time this year by James Johnstone. How you doing, James?
Yes, yeah, I'm all good. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks everybody else. Hope you all had a good Christmas, and looking forward to this, and then obviously the New Year's, and then the game New Year's Day. Can't wait. Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because I don't look at the schedules ahead, and I look at game by game, but there's games tomorrow, and it's kind of very spread almost, isn't it? I feel like at the moment, but then we have a really quick turnaround after Wednesday's game, and 2 quick away games. This is a big week for us, so we got to get into it. Can talk about the Ipswich game, talk a little bit about the next 2 games, a little bit on the transfer window, and obviously we do have to discuss the fact that Bukayo Saka's had surgery on his hamstring. That is not good news, and not something we, or certainly I even, well, they didn't really mention it, to be fair. They didn't mention that as even being a possibility a week ago when we last spoke. So it's the worst case scenario, really, and you start to wonder about timeframes and the season and things like that. So that is a big concern. So we'll get to that. In terms of the lineup, the 2 things that stood out to me in the lineup, or maybe more than 2, but firstly, Lewis Skelly, James keeping his spot. Wanting you to tell me about that. Rice and Havertz in the double pivot. Rice being put into the 6 a little bit more. Partey, I think this is the first time this season I've felt that Partey's been dropped. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't think it was a rotation or a fitness thing. I looked at that lineup and I went, he's dropped Thomas Partey in that one. Tell me if you think that's wrong. And then the other thing that I maybe want you both to discuss is how the bench looked. Because when you looked at the bench, it was quite incredible to see 110 million worth of left backs and a 17-year-old attacker there. And I just wonder what your thoughts are on that as well.
Yeah, so obviously, first question out of all of that, Lewis Skelly. I was over the moon that he stuck with him. I think he has been an absolute revelation since he's come in there and in that position. And the performances from the attacking standpoint, I know obviously we've scored 8 goals in a week last week. So it's been a lot more fluent than what it probably was before. But we've all said about defensively, some of the goals we've conceded, especially when you look at the XG of them, they're not the best. But I think that he has arguably been one of, if not the best, in that back 5 in the most recent games. And you consider out of that back 5, they're all established international players and how good they are. I think Lewis Skelly's been absolutely brilliant, and I was glad that not only did he pick him to start, he also, like you said, when there's £110 million worth of left back on that bench, he still gave Lewis Skelly 90 minutes worth of football. He didn't take him off, he let him play the full game, which is a massive, massive show of confidence, not just from the player, but from the manager as well. And jumping the gun slightly, so I'll rein myself back in. But for me, he was man of the match. I think, Neil, as well, you said about Lewis Skelly was your man of the match as well. So that's huge for him. Declan Rice, I think, again, Jack, you called this about three, maybe 4 pods ago when you said he's not renewing. It looks as though the club aren't sitting down to renew with him. So you feel that eventually they will move to either Rice, Moreno, Odegaard, or another form of, midfield 3 due to this renewal not taking place.
For Thomas Partey,
So
yeah.
So I think now he's basically seen as more of right back cover than he probably is as either a starter at 6, which shows the natural progression of what can, from Wednesday, he can sign for clubs abroad, for the summer.
Yeah.
That kicks in for the 1st of Jan. So, he could have, by next week, he could already have a new club lined up for him to go to, because it is going to be his last contract. I don't know. I can't remember what he is on at Arsenal, but I know it's a good way. I know he's near enough that he's
200-ish.
Yeah, I think he's in the top 5 earners.
Yeah.
So, I don't think he's going to get, an increase that's significant enough maybe for him to want to sign. And plus, I don't think he'll want maybe a 2-year and then maybe an option of another year. I don't think we're going to give him that. And I don't want us to give him that. I don't care how good he's been this season. I still wouldn't renew his contract because he's only going one way, and that isn't up. And then, Havertz, like I said before we come on air, you can't drop Jesus after the performance that he's had the last few weeks and the goals that he scored. And Havertz has been in there just purely because Arteta's like, with Saka gone, I'm going to play every single player that I've got that I feel can score. And although Havertz's goals have been coming from 9 positions, really, instead of the midfield position, he is being picked there purely just based on the fact that he's a goal scorer. I reckon if we hadn't seen the resurgence in Jesus that we have, he'd still be up top and Moreno would be starting. But at the moment, Kai Havertz's goals are so important when, like we said, you're losing Bukayo Saka, who, 28 games I think we've played in all comps. And like I said as well before the show started, he's been man of the match in 8 of them. So arguably a third of all the football that we've played this season, he's been our standout player. And you're losing there with him now being injured. God knows how many goals or assists. So someone's got to make that up. And at the moment, Havertz is still scoring, so he will play him. If you can't play him in the position which we know is his best, he'll try and fit him in anywhere because the goals are so important.
Yeah, spot on. And I think that's what he does. The thing is, when he sets up an attacking lineup like that now that Saka is not there, you really don't give yourself a lot of options from the bench unless you're going to trust in Nwaneri more than what he has shown himself to do all season. And I think we saw that in this game. He didn't make an attack. Well, he did make an attacking sub, but it was Moreno that came on for Jesus and Havertz moved up top, but he didn't bring an attacker on substitution-wise. And I know game state plays into that a little bit, but really, we were going as much for the second goal as they were trying to get anything in this game, you know what I mean? So I think the concern there is, you can't have those players playing 90 minutes every week because none of them, other than Kai Havertz, have proven that they can do that. And the last thing you need right now is to lose another attacker. Do you know what I mean? So I was watching it thinking, I don't think I've seen a lot of these players play 90 minutes. So how are we getting these off the pitch, Not on a regular basis. Martinelli, Trossard, Jesus. So that would be the concern. And I agree with you. Just to go back on the MLS thing, he's... 18, but he's now at a point where he's seriously being considered, Neil, as our possible first choice left back. It's probably fair to say objectively, if you looked at it, Calafiori is probably, maybe in front of him when push comes to shove and we get to the latter stages of the Champions League, hopefully, and things like that. But I think at the very least, you'd have to say that Lewis Skelly is in that first 2 choice bracket. And to say that and discard, your Zinchenko's and your Kiviors and your Tierney's and your Tomiyasus, if you said that at the start of the season about Lewis Skelly, we would have all, jumped out of our seats and been shocked by it, to be honest, and not because of his talent, just because he wasn't really considered as a legitimate first team option. But he's been so good, hasn't he, Neil? Brilliant performance. I thought he was brilliant against Everton when we drew, and I don't think we discussed him enough because of our frustration. But he's right to keep him in the team, isn't he? He's really, really a really good footballer, isn't he? And he's learning so much every week.
He's fantastic. I kept a close eye on him again. for the second time. One of the live games I've been to, the Monaco one was the first, and now this one. And I said it on the last pod. I think his first choice. I said his first choice may be just peeping Calafiore almost. But that will be more of a rotational, change between the two of them. So I'm fully on board with him being first choice, Jack and James. I really am. I think he's so composed and so ahead of his years. It's unbelievable, and he really is. It's so nice that we've got two fullbacks, very similar and very talented, to be on the side of really the best central defence in the Prem. It's fantastic. And Raya ain't bad either, is he? So I think the foundation of our team is there now. And even if we have to rotate, we've still got some good players to take their places. That's a good thing. You've got to remember that hopefully at some stage White will come back. Tomiyasu, hopefully. I mean, their players like Kiwior, I don't feel has done a bad job when he's been called upon. So, we've got players there that can fit in. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, both of you, Thomas Partey as well. So, there is a plethora of players to take their place. But I think for now, when especially we're missing Saka, it's not just about the players around him that I think we need to focus on. We need to focus on the whole team and the adaptation of the whole team, of all of them having to step up. But now, particularly on the right-hand side, where I think Timber can be brilliant. He could be absolutely fantastic there to help Odegaard. And I think we saw it in this game as well. We saw some movement in Timber that, that was causing their defence some problems at times. For many years, I've always said, why don't we ever just charge through the middle, run with the ball and run at defenders? And I saw it for the first time in a long time with Timber, and he was almost successful with it. Odegaard had a couple of chances doing that, which led to one of the corners. And, it's something that I think is going to have to become part of now Arteta's strategy, because losing Saka on the right is almost like, removing our left leg as a team. As if you look at it as a body, it's a massive, massive loss. So all the other players have to step up. And Lewis Skelly has absolutely stepped up. Well, I don't think he's stepped up. He's just come in and been that way from day one. If he's not going to get injured, and he is changed, I hope it's only for its rotational purposes and to rest him, because I think he's the real deal and he offers a lot, and he definitely strengthens the left, which has also been lacking as well. So what Timber does on the right, Skelly is doing on the left. It's fantastic, and I have to applaud him. I really do. Brilliant performance.
Yeah, I love how he's so good at taking the ball under pressure. Like, he gets the ball. I love how tenacious he is as well. A couple of times he had a little run in with the lap. The Phillips one was coming, by the way, because Phillips literally elbowed him in the back in the centre circle. He somehow kept the ball, Lewis Skelly, fell over and got a free kick for it. But Calvin Phillips was doing that thing where you go, oh, young uns on, lay into him a little bit. I was like, all right, fat boy Slim, hold on a minute. All right, let's get proper footballer here. And the thing is with Lewis Skelly, he loves contact. He just embraces contact. That's completely opposite Zinchenko, you see, because I think there's quite a lot of similarities with them on the ball in terms of, you can tell they're both really comfortable on the ball. More comfortable, I think, than even Calafiore personally on the ball. But the difference with Lewis Skelly is he wants the contact. He wants the physical contact, very much like Wilshere did. He almost encourages it. And Zinchenko does the opposite.
I think he reads the game better as well, Jack. And I think he's smarter.
Yeah, have you noticed that we're not getting caught out so much as well?
That's right.
Yeah, like Zinchenko, that's what we always say about Zinchenko. We're like, well, he's 26, 27. He's not going to learn from his defensive errors. He's done it for years, and he's not learned. But Lewis Skelly always looked like that moment that he had against Liverpool, where they scored their second, which I think was largely down to Martinelli's brainless running with the ball that caught him out anyway. But that positional moment where he looked like he was just a little bit out of position, it looks like he's already triggered to him. Okay, I need, he's a little bit more aware of that, and he's learned from that. Obviously, he'll make mistakes again. He's 18, but the improvement that we're seeing in him, and sometimes you just see a player roll into a team. I think Neil's right. Do you remember when Bellerin came in that time, and Debussy got his shoulder done in by an Arteta or whatever into the the floorboards, whatever, and you remember watching Bellerin just being like, this player's not going to play anymore, and we just signed Debussy for like 12 million or something, big money back then, and it was like his career, actually, not just his career basically was done. Debussy's, wasn't it? He basically didn't really play much. He went to France, didn't play much again, really, not at top level anyway. And I'm not saying that's what's happening, but I think you're right. Sometimes a player just comes in and just grabs the shirt off your back. And I think Lewis Skelly just looks like he's so good. And a lot of people saying, wait till you see him in midfield. I don't know, mate. I mean, I don't think youth positionally you can judge that much anymore. I think you've got to judge them from when they're in the first team under a top coach. And if they're using them in a position, you may want to step back and think, okay, he might be considering this for more than the short term. You know what I mean? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he plays in midfield in the future at all, but he is certainly looking the part at left back. And the amount we conceded, I mean, we're going to get onto our attacking issues, but I mean, it was a 1-0 game, anything but a 1-0 game other than the scoreline, to be honest. I mean, they did not even show a desire to attack in this game, but they also didn't create a thing other than the first 15 seconds where a deflected cross somehow made its way into their attacker, and he didn't touch the ball, but he almost did. Beyond that, I don't remember they had 3 shots but none on target, but I don't remember one of those, so they were all very speculative. And this isn't the first game we've seen that with Lewis Skelly at left back. We saw it against Everton. I know we didn't score, but it was a very similar game other than the goal. You know what I mean? Like, Everton we didn't give him a sniff. Even against Fulham, I don't think Lewis Skelly started that one, but we didn't give him a sniff. We're starting to show a real control that probably Mikel Arteta is even more satisfied with than he was the 5 goals at Crystal Palace, which we'll get to in some of his comments post-game, because he does exude the manager that just looks at a game like this and goes, that is perfect. And I think we may want to look at the other end a little bit. But James, the one thing, talking point was, who is going to permanently replace Bukayo Saka? I think the answer there is no one can really, but it was Martinelli on the day. It's come in for a lot of criticism after this performance. Do you think that's warranted?
No, I think he was better than what he has been in most recent weeks, but I think people are obviously judging him in that position compared to Bukayo Saka, and I'm like, well, he's never going to do that. Like you said, we haven't got anyone that does that. So no. I think to compare the two is quite unfair. But no, I had no real problems with Martinelli at all. I mean, where I am, I'm 50 minutes from Ipswich. Where I live, I'm 50 minutes away. My brother used to have an apartment that looked out on Portman Road. So I know a lot of Ipswich fans. I know a lot of Ipswich people. And they said, we ain't gone to a back 5 all season, but we did against you. And the main guy that I speak with, he's a home Ipswich season ticket. He don't go away, but he goes home. And but he messaged me while the game was on, and he said, even though we've lost, that's our best defensive performance all season. And he went, not even. He said, I don't think you necessarily were bad, but he went, we just valiantly dug in there. Because he went, you have struggled against low blocks and what have you. But he went, we've not done that all year until we played you. He said, that's the compliment. He said, even against Liverpool, okay, they played them first game of the season. But he said, even against Liverpool, with all their options that they had, we didn't even do this. So he's like, credit to Arsenal that you've, put the fear in us that much that we've done that. But yeah, I think all of them, I saw a lot of people come in for Jesus as well. I don't think he had a bad game. I think service-wise, we weren't quick enough to get it into him. And then the time that we did, he was offside. Only marginally, but he was.
Move that.
And, yeah, it was brilliant. And also, I think Trossard that's the best game he's had in weeks as well. So, yeah, no, but to go to your original question about Martinelli, no, I think obviously it's a bit predictable, even from the right-hand side, a bit like he is on the left, but that's him altogether. I think that's just, at the moment, that is Martinelli's game. So, you know, I can't really, you know, I saw a lot of people digging him out and I just didn't really understand it. I didn't know why. I wouldn't have said he's the worst player on the pitch at all that we had the other night.
I think when I evaluated him, I think I definitely looked at it and thought he can't be the only option at right wing during this Saka absence, right? I can't see it working in every game state. But then I also looked at it and thought, against deep low blocks, we don't really like Martinelli at left wing. Like, we don't really want to play him at left wing, so why are we going to like it at right wing, really? You know what I mean? And I think when he did do stuff well, because the goal actually comes from his cross, Neil. It comes from his cross. And when he did do stuff well was when he basically just simplified his game, took the ball, didn't try to do too much of it, got it out of his feet, whipped it in. And I think sometimes maybe that is what you need to see, just really simplify things from him. And I actually thought he was better in broken play in the second half when they started to try to break out a little bit. They pushed one or two players up in the last 20 minutes and we'd sometimes transition on them, and suddenly Martinelli would do really, really well against two or three players, like when he had to do it all on his own kind of thing. But I am still of the sort of summation after that of it's got to be a rotational position at this point unless we sign someone. It's got to be him, Jesus possibly. Please entrust him Wanyeri at some point, because I don't think every game state's going to work from him. What are your thoughts on Martinelli, Neil?
Trying to find the mute button. Yeah, I'm here. Firstly, I just want to say, being at the game, I was frustrated, right? I think everyone was. I mean, I was kind of saw bits of your WhatsApp chat when I could get a bit of reception. Coming away from it and thinking about it, I actually am not disappointed with our performance. What James was saying earlier about his, the contact he has with some Ipswich fans is absolutely spot on. It's the first time, in terms of our defence, I think it's the first time they haven't even had a shot on target all season. Against anyone. That's the first thing. And then, then they turn up with a formation of 5-4, a bank of 5 and 4. And as we were watching it, because we were high up, they were just sitting deep right from the get-go. And it was literally impossible to break them down. It was just, they'd done well. They organised themselves really well. But to try and break that down, even I think the most creative teams would struggle, or the most creative players would struggle. So within that, what our players actually did to actually score one goal and get the ball in the net again, and to be fair, create quite a few almost chances. We can talk about that, I'm sure, a bit later. Actually, isn't a bad show, and I think that's why Arteta was quite pleased, because he said, it's almost like for him a perfect game, I guess. There's no lapses in defence. Rare had no shots to save on target or nothing off target. He just literally was a spectator for the whole game. And speaking of Rare, that was his 50th game as well. So, that's a nice landmark for him. And I just want to quickly mention Santi Cazorla. It was a delight to see him. And please come back to Arsenal and do something with the club. And he did kind of allude to it, kind of. So
he's coming back at some point.
Yeah, he's got.
He can still play. He can still play. I reckon at 40, he's still better than some of them that we got at the moment.
I completely agree. I totally
right wing
agree.
Right wing option.
Yeah, exactly. Martinelli. So speaking of Martinelli, I think I don't want to be too hard on any of the forwards. I think James is right. I think that was one of Trossard's best games that we've seen of him this season. I don't think Jesus actually particularly played a bad game, and neither did Martinelli. I don't think any of them did. They just were so well organised. But for the goal, both the left wing and the right wing were involved, which was nice to see. It's nice to see both wings getting the left and right side being involved. That was a great cross from Martinelli, and an even better one, I think, from Trossard and Havertz. That was just a striker's finish. I mean that's. I'm so glad it was him, actually, to be fair, because his goals have dried up a little, and I think it was nice for him to sign off the way he pretty much started 2024 to end it. And I think is it 15 goals in 30 or something? And I think that of his last 11, they've all been at London, which is quite strange.
Right, hopefully have a good January then, because we got a few more of those, haven't we?
Yeah. So I thought it was a good goal, and I think it's a bit of a confidence booster for Martinelli because he was involved, I'm in total agreement with you. He can't be the permanent solution for Saka. No one is anywhere near Saka's levels. I wish they were, but unfortunately they're not. And I think it's going to have to be a rotation. And I do think Ethan should get a chance because I think he'd be pretty handy down there. Can you imagine Timber and Ethan linking up? Oh, that'd be tasty. That'd be tasty. So yeah, I'm pleased with all the forwards' performances, including Martinelli.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on Jesus. I think James said he only had 30 touches in the game. He was the least touched, player with the least touches in the game by quite some distance from us. And I just felt, but what I liked about Gabriel Jesus' performance was that he held his position. I didn't see him forcing it by dropping into central midfield and things like that. I felt like he was trying to be a number 9 as much as he could, and it wasn't his fault necessarily the ball wasn't coming his way. And like you said, when it did, maybe he just caught himself offside, but it was a great little finish. And sometimes you get those, sometimes you don't. But I was quite happy with his performance and work rate and everything. I thought he did quite well. And I wouldn't have a problem with playing him at number 9 again. But I do think now, because of the way the injuries are, which we'll get to, I think he has to be considered as a wide option as well. I don't think we can just stick solely to one. We just don't have enough players up there to do that at the very least. And so we'll get to that. And I think another thing is, I thought Havertz and Rice were very good in this game, but I'm still not convinced by that midfield combination. Whether it really works. I think in games like this it's okay. But I can't help but think with Kai Havertz and his numbers that he's put up since January that you've got to get him back to the centre forward position if we want to get him close to those numbers. When we've lost so many goals in Saka, you have to look at how you can keep those goals. I think there was some stat that came out that said obviously we had 5 games where we didn't score a goal last season. We've had 3 already this season, but we've also had I think 8 out of his 18 games in this league season where we've only scored 1. We've only scored once, and I think that might be something to look at too, because we'll get to it. But games stay at 1-0. Or 1 goal difference is sometimes so touchy, even in games like this where you're just super dominant. We didn't create a ton in the first half. I mean, I think most of our chances, the goal obviously came in the first half, which Neil discussed. Most of our chances came in a second. I want to say that run, I love the runs as well. I agree, we've got to start, people sitting in deeper and deeper blocks, got to start just driving through the middle of the park. Timber started it, Odegaard continue it. Declan Rice should be doing that from the 6 or the 8. He's probably the best player at that, to run through players. Got to do it, because that you break the whole system up when you take players on, when you start dribbling at them. And we don't really have, now Saka's not playing, we don't really have the best dribblers from wide positions, do we? We don't have people that really, Martinelli used to be that. He's not that really anymore. He's not someone that you go, oh yeah, go on, take him on. You're not confident he's going to do it anymore. You're not. It's not like it was 12 to 18 months ago. He should be that. I watched some clips of him and I'm like, you were everything about that. But I don't feel he's that anymore. So we need that from different areas, and I think, I like to see that a little bit more. But yeah, we had, James, what were your thoughts on Odegaard? I think Odegaard's got to step up a little bit more. I started seeing him trying to do that in the second half, but I still feel he's passing a little bit is off. Sometimes he's just a little off in his performance and his final ball and his final pass or his final shot. We need him to step up like Saka did when he was out, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the last 3 seasons, I've said he's been our best player. I still feel on his day, he's not just one of the best players at Arsenal. He could be one of the best players in the league. But this season, since he's come back from that ankle injury, he's nowhere near the level that he should be. And like you've said, especially now more than ever, he needs to take the mantle and do things that we know that Martin Odegaard can do. There's, I'm not completely saying he's a write-off like some other fans have. I know a lot of our fan base, especially after the other day, were really, really getting into him. I couldn't really, I couldn't really see how anyone really got dug out after Ipswich, but I won't repeat that conversation again. But yeah, he's got to do more. I think, like you said, driving with the ball, brilliant, because especially from him, because we know how well he can pick a pass, and the more you drive through, it's going to pull people out. That's going to leave gaps, and we should be exploiting them gaps, and so should he. But yeah, for me, he just needs to score a goal, Jack. I think if he gets one, that will spur. I don't like using that word. Actually, I won't say that. It will push him on instead of the other word I was going to use. Yeah, it will push him on to continue. So yeah, because again, that GA that you're losing, someone has got to replace. You're losing 20 plus goals and assists with Saka being out. So someone's got to do it. I know you're talking about who should we buy in a minute, but right now, going off what we have, someone's got to do it. And for me, he's one of the prime candidates.
Yeah, we need Odegaard to get back to 22, 23 numbers. That's what we need. 15. What do you have? 15 open play goals.
Yeah,
he's got to start doing that. And I think the weird thing with Odegaard is, like you, I think he's the best footballer in the league. Sometimes I feel like he needs to be told that. Like, you are the best footballer in the league, so take the ball like you did in the second half and just run at them. Take your pot shots. Honestly, he's probably got the best shot in our team. He needs to do it more often, though. Sometimes he gets there and he does this Ozil-like thing where he'll play the extra pass. So I'm like, stop it. Stop doing it. Take responsibility on your shoulders.
Jack, sorry, as well. You're saying about that. I don't know what's happened the last few weeks, but Declan Rice, for me, has completely taken what you said on, because he, for whatever reason, was running in, and last season I've seen him bend one here, smash one there, but he kept passing it sideways.
Yep.
And it was like, what are you doing? Like, I'm like, I know you've got a shot on your Rice, and these last couple of games he's shooting way more than what he has before, so he understands. He had one in the first half that was dipping, nearly went in, and the one from the court. That could have been an Odegaard assist there from that corner routine. Yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. Really, really nice. And the volley as well was fantastic. So yeah, I will say, like, props to Rice. Even from 6 or 8, he's now looking at it going, someone's got to score some more goals here. And he's taken that on. So, yeah, fair play to him as well. Yeah,
I think the best thing I can say for Rice is, although we didn't create bucket loads of chances in this game, I'm starting to really see some positive signs of how he's playing with us at the 6. And I am starting to see why he needs a bit of continuity there, like a little bit of consistency. Like we keep saying, can't keep moving Havertz from the 8 to 9. Well, it can't be quite as easy for Rice. I know he's capable of it. That's why we bought him, that he can play both those positions, and there's not many players out there that can do that at the top level, play your 6 and your 8. But I do think with Thomas Partey, there's just no part of my mind that thinks Thomas Partey is going to play as much in the second half of the season as he's in the first. In fact, I don't even think it will be close, because like you said, I don't think we're going to offer him anything, and that is in his mind. So therefore, and it's in our minds too. So therefore, we're going to be like, well, we have to remove some minutes from this guy, because if he can talk to other clubs or even think about talking to other clubs, that drops him 1 or 2% in it does. We know natural game way is different. It's different when you've got a player that you actually really desire to keep, like Liverpool with Salah or whatever. Then you're getting that player that's just playing for more and more. Every week he's adding 10 grand to his wage if he gets a goal and assist. This isn't quite like that. This is almost the flip of it, and that's why I think his minutes are going to be greatly reduced. And the plan probably always was to eventually get Rice back to the 6. The only thing I would say with that is, when Moreno came on, I think you immediately saw the dynamic of Odegaard and our movement in midfield became, and our fluidness of our passing, and that's when all the flurry of chances came, really, right? The Odegaard tip over, I think maybe the Gabriel header came around that time as well, Moreno's chance from the edge of the box. The Gabriel header's the big one. Even he must be like, that's probably the easiest header I've had in my Arsenal career. I don't know how I've missed that. I think he's just misjudged where the goal is slightly, because it hits the bottom of the post. But
I think as well as he's running, I think he's not solely focused on smashing the ball. I think he's thought, like you said, he's near the putt, and he's like, oh, if I go full pelt at that, not only am I heading that ball, I'm going to go head first into the post. And you got to remember, he only got whacked in the head by Fabianski a couple of weeks ago, so he's probably like, I don't want to get smashed in the head any more than necessary. So yeah, I think that coming afterwards. Like you said, he is looking at it going, bugger, that's bread and butter for me. Yeah. But in the moment, yeah, I think he's probably thinking he's more towards that side of the post than he actually was, and he's scared about smacking into it.
Yeah. Neil, where do you stand on the whole? Because even when we score, right, some of us have said that first goal is the key. Once we get the first goal, the team has to come out. They didn't do any of that. They literally looked like they were just as happy at 1-0 as they were at 0-0 to just be like, we're not moving. We're staying 10 men behind the ball and we're not moving. But we have to be better at breaking those teams down. We were so dominant. There was a point where Saliba was having more passes than their whole team. I mean, we were so dominant. But we only created, 5 goals, shots on goal, was it? Or 6 shots on goal. We've got to be able to create more for our dominance, haven't we, Neil? And Ipswich aren't used to this. So they're not great at doing this type of football because they don't do it every week. So when we come up against teams that are really used to it, like the Evertons, possibly like your Brentfords, or, depending on how they set up, it's going to be even harder, right? So we've got to be far, far better. And now with Saka being out, he's often the one that breaks the deadlock or creates the pass or the cross or the goal. So we've got to be better, haven't we, Neil?
Yeah, of course we have to be better. I think that's been the theme this season anyway. When Odegaard was out, we were lacking creativity. We've been talking about we've not been clinical with our finishing, etc. But I'm gonna take a little bit of a sidestep this game. I'll tell you why. You guys mentioned Odegaard, and I agree. He's probably not at his absolute optimal best. But if you think about some of the contributions he made, obviously those 2 runs that he made, which one of them led to the corner which he then took, which is fantastic. That in itself showed that we're not just a typical, because everyone's starting to think that, their set piece is typical. It's very effective, but it's quite similar each time. But this was very different. It shows that there's a bit of diversity in what we can do. And that was an amazing strike from Rice. So from that point, just for that example, on another day, that would have gone in. So that would have been 2 goals, right? There was another case on the left-hand side, which Odegaard was involved with Kai Havertz, where they did a 1-2. That was an amazing through ball by Odegaard. And Havertz just the final pass, that cross. So there, yes, I agree. There could be an improvement where maybe Havertz could have just taken maybe a second longer and maybe delivered a more effective pass, but he just booted it at the defender.
He had space there to come inside.
Yes. So there I agree. And that actually led to the Gabriel mischance, actually. So again, if that had gone in, that would have been 3 goals. And then I don't think we would be having this discussion. We might be, but maybe not so intensively. So I'm with you, and we have been so frustrated before, and we've said, why don't there was a chance, I think, in the first half where Trossard should have taken it first time, but he didn't. It's things like that. It's where I think what was lacking in this game was we weren't fast enough. We weren't. It wasn't a one touch football. One touch, bang, bang, bang. And I think that would have broken them down. I don't think they would have been able to live with that. But we were taking maybe the second, the third pass or touch, and then thinking about it a bit too much. And I think that gave Ipswich an opportunity to, just even shore up even more what they already had in their banks of defence. So I am 50-50 with you on this one. I kind of agree. Well, I do agree that we have to be clinical, we have to be more creative. But I think there was some kind of, what they call fine margins in this game, which could have made the score 3 or 4-0. I mean, even the Jesus offside, that if you just stayed back a little bit, then, that would have been another goal. So I think, yes, they need to improve maybe a little bit on all of those things, and then the goals will come. But I think, one thing you have said, which I think I completely agree with, Odegaard needs a goal. And if he scores, that could open the floodgates. and then that might change everything. But there is that one creative player that is still not getting on the pitch, and I will not say his name any longer.
Yeah, and the problem is I said before this game, if he doesn't start him in this game, I'm not really seeing where his minutes are coming from, because Sterling was out, Saka's obviously out. This was a home game against a team that we let's be honest, we should be beating. It's one of the easier games on paper in the season. So I don't really see, maybe bench minutes for sure, but starting minutes, I'm not really seeing them. And I'm not concerned for Winieri's future and all that kind of stuff, but it means he doesn't trust him at this point. And the signs are that Sterling's injury is not as bad as first feared, so he may well be back, and I think he'll come into the fray and be possibly ahead of him because of his experience and and things like that. Though I think Sterling's still got a way to go in terms of proving himself fitness wise, and some of the stuff we've been hearing about him in training. Things like he's got to prove that he's able to do both sides of the game for us, because otherwise we're not going to play him. Certainly not from the start. Anyway, what do you think about this quote after the game, James, on whether he was more satisfied with the result than the Palace result? In terms of how well we control the position, 10 times more satisfied, because we conceded 14 or 15 shots against Palace, and it's nothing that we normally do. So overall, I think this one was much better, but it's about the goals as well, and the beauty of it, and entertaining people, and that one was probably better for them. What do you think about that, James? I think it plays into a lot of what we've been talking about with Mikel Arteta's desire more to control things, but I think we also have to think about it. Sometimes the game is just on an edge. Even at 1-0, you saw in that last couple of minutes, anything can happen. If Amari Hutchinson, one of his dives, if the ref buys it, if one of their shots deflects into a path, Raya's pass out that went a little bit, it's just too. It's too tetchy at 1-0, even though they had 0.1 XG to our 2.0. It's a perfect defensive performance, yet it takes very, very little for a game to lose 2 points.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember right near the end, Kai Havertz is only a slight, if he doesn't use his head to move that arm behind his back like that so quick, that's a penalty right at the end of the game, like last kick of the game. That's a penalty for them, because they'd give it because it's against us. They'd love to, they'd love to give it. Not that they're going to give it. They'd love to give it as well. So that's always on the back of your mind. I think, per that quote, he probably sits and thinks in his head that everybody watches football through his sort of lens, whereas we all watch it in our own guise and in our own way. And I know a lot of people, especially people from more so my father's era and what have you, loved George Graham-esque defensive football. And me, I was brought up on Arsene Wenger football. So it's slightly different. I admire and respect both. I still watch a lot of the Italian league, which is purely defensive football mainly. So I can see the nuances and the brilliance in both. However, to think that was more entertaining than Crystal Palace, I don't understand that quote. But to me, it goes a bit to like we did say when we did the podcast against Crystal Palace, in that even though we got those goals, it didn't really feel like a 5-1 game. Whereas this, it was a 1-0 game, but you thought to yourself, well, really, the scoreline doesn't really, it flatters to deceive, because really we should have done them about 3 or 4. So I get what he means, but yeah, I think if you watch with a defensive lens on, way better, because not only did we not concede, but there was a 15 to 20 minute spell just after the second half started against Crystal Palace, where I'm not necessarily saying we were shitting it, but we were like, bloody, what are you doing? Like, you've just got this back. You're going in at half time. The first thing you're going to say is first 15 or 20 minutes, don't muck about. And, we talked about it, didn't we? An 18-year-old kid was the best on the ball out of the whole defence that's got Timber, Raya, Saliba and Gabriel in. And yet he was the one that was the most composed and wasn't mucking around and doing silly stuff. So, Yeah, I get where he's trying to come from, but for me, it wasn't as entertaining. It wasn't as entertaining as Crystal Palace at all.
Sorry,
if anything, it was quite a bit.
He did say, I think he said he preferred it. He said, I know the people. It would be more entertained probably from the Palace one. So I don't think he said he was more entertained, but he did say he preferred this before.
Oh, God, yeah.
Which I think...
Goes back to what he said against Fulham, doesn't it? He's a perfection. He's obsessed with restricting teams to absolutely nothing, which isn't going to happen.
No.
We could have, the prime Maldini, Sol Campbell, Tony Adams, whatever other centre-backs, right-backs, left-backs you want to... you're still going to concede chances. So to completely obsess with this perfection in his head that believes can be achieved, it's not going to happen. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
I mean, look, Neil. We have the best defence in the league. We've conceded the least goals. We have the most clean sheets. Last year, David Raya won the Golden Glove. He didn't even play in the first 6 games of the season, and he won the Golden Glove. No one is more impressed than our defence than we are. We've talked about it a lot. I think the point is, and the question that many Arsenal fans might ask is, can you win titles, when your ultimate goal is to achieve defensive perfection, rather than I'm going to create another 5-10 chances in this game because I know if I don't get defensive perfection, or if we make one mistake back there, it's not going to matter anyway. And I think that was the takeaway for me from the Palace game, is you can make that mistake back there even if you do, you've covered it by creating bucket loads of chances in the other direction that your players are going to put away. So you've got that jeopardy. It's very much what Liverpool do, isn't it? Liverpool, really, they are much more, in my opinion, defensively vulnerable than we are. Not a lot, not as much as they were in Klopp. They're definitely more defensively solid than they were under Klopp, but they are still much more. When you look at their fullbacks, they can be got at big time, in my opinion. And I don't think people take advantage of it. But they get up that by creating just a ton of clear chances at the other end, no matter what the game state is, no matter if they're down to 10 men or what, whatever team they're coming up against, they seem to be able to create chaos in that final third. I don't know what your thoughts on it, Neil.
My thoughts are having solid defence, having a world-class goalkeeper certainly will contribute to winning the title. It won't win you the title outright, because in every championship winning team, you need balance. That's balance in the defence, midfield and the forward lineup. If one is slightly weaker or lacking, I think you'll do very well to even be contending, let alone winning the thing. So I don't. Unlike James was saying earlier, I have lucky enough to come from the George Graham era as well. And yes, his formula did win him 2 titles. Arsenal, when it came along, his formula won him 3 titles and 2 doubles. So there's merit in both. But for me, the game has evolved so much, and the quality, when you've got the likes of Man City, all right, hopefully there won't be not much longer to think about after the end of this season. But now Liverpool are kind of taking their place. Chelsea are coming up. The quality is so high. You don't just have one main rival in the title running. You have maybe 2 or 3 now, or maybe even 4. You've got to be damn good in all areas and all departments. You've got to have that goalkeeper that might save you 10 to 15 points a season. You've got to have that defence that may keep a few more clean sheets than otherwise would, which will maybe get you those extra points that will win you the title. But then you've got to have the creativity in the midfield, and then you've got to have the clinical finishing up front. And I think at the moment, just contradicting a little bit what I said, I still do believe we are not clinical up front. I'm not going to disagree with that. I don't think we're as creative as we could be, because on paper we do have the players that are capable of doing it, but they're just not quite firing. Rice, just on a side note, on his interview did say, to be fair to him, that he has had a slow start to this season. He has now started to find his feet, and he is more comfortable in the 6. He says he will do whatever his manager tells him to do, but he is far more comfortable in the 6. So maybe it's a case of that's why Mourinho has come in and he can take over the 8 role. But every player, no matter what their responsibility, has to contribute to get this balance right, to get that left side ticking as well as the right when Saka is playing. We've got to have all the adaptability as well if things aren't going our way. It's a lot that contributes to a title-winning side. So no, Arteta, I disagree. It's not just about perfecting the defence and having no shots on target, because as James said, that is nigh on impossible. Yes, it worked with Ipswich. It ain't going to work with Liverpool and teams like that.
Yeah. It is impressive. I mean, like you said, it's all about balance. And I do think we weigh into the defence a bit too much. I think defence is the first thing he thinks about, possibly because of what he took over and, how defensive we were shambolic defensively when he took over us. Let's be honest. So, and it is quite incredible with the amount of defensive injuries we've had. For us to sort of start thinking that we might be settling on a back four that might be our best back four with an 18-year-old in it that wasn't even considered at the start of the season. That is quite impressive defensive depth that we built, in fairness. It just feels a little outweighed towards the defensive line when you look at what our attacking options are and what we've spent there in terms of quality. But yeah, I mean, 1-0 win, we deserve more, like you said. I don't think there's too much more to say on the game. We made a couple of subs. Very interesting, we didn't make any attacking subs in this game, but maybe game state played into that. The last thing I'll say on Amari Hutchinson, I had no issue with us booing him. Lee Dixon was on my commentary and he was moaning about Arsenal non-stop. I mean, what a dreadful commentator Lee Dixon was. If he wants Arsenal fans that are of this era to not appreciate what he was as a footballer, he's doing a great job of it. He's doing a really, really good job of it, because I and all of us remember Lee Dixon as a terrific right back and a legend of the club. But like Alan Smith, he seems to have this knack for irritating every Arsenal fan by trying to take impartiality to favouring the opposition. And I just wish they would take a leaf out of the Frank McClintocks and the Ian Wrights of this world and understand where they came from. And what the club that helped them, and he doesn't seem to. He just moans about everything. He was moaning about us booing Amari Hutchinson. He was moaning about us not scoring more. He was moaning about the atmosphere. He was moaning everything. But I thought the reason I think the booing was okay. Any player that goes to Chelsea, I'm absolutely fine with us booing. Cesc Fabregas, we booed Cesc Fabregas. Why can't we boo Amari Hutchinson? I don't care that he's what age he is. I'll boo you all alike. I don't care. Absolutely boo you. And secondly, the bloke dived twice, blatantly dived twice. He was very lucky to not get sent off, let alone booked. If you're doing dives like that, I don't care who you are, if you're ex-Arsenal or not, you deserve to get booed. So I don't have a problem with that. Sorry, go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, I was just going to say, James, I think, did you have Prime? Are you listening to Prime? Because then I watched the highlights on Prime.
Yes.
And actually, for a change, I didn't, even though it was Shearer, I don't think the commentary was as bad as it has been for us of recent times. I didn't know this, but Michael retweeted something that a Prime moving away from the football.
They got outbid.
Oh.
Sky and TNT, where they've lost so much of everything else, they're like, I don't want to get into this massive convo because I know that you wanted to try and do a quicker pod, so I'll try and surmise it as quick as I can. No. The amount of content Sky have lost, for how much they're charging, you're getting less and less. I mean, there's way more EFL now for clubs that are in the EFL and fans of those. Fair play. But at the same point, the majority of people that watch the EFL actually go live because they're more or less their local team. Correct. So they literally have nothing else but their football team. So, and you're not watching the other teams within the league because it's not that. But yeah, so that, they keep pumping out like, oh, we've got 70 more EFL games. I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care. I couldn't care less that you've got more EFL. Like, sorry, I don't support them. I don't watch it. But in terms of, like Premier League and stuff like that, I think that the quality of analysis has diminished to such an extent that it's not worth my fee anymore. Let's be brutally honest, they're putting the likes of us on there now because they're desperate. I years and years ago, when I tried to go down the media route, I know a lot of people might be watching that going, bloody hell, James, you'd have never been on the... But, I gave it a go and they told me that they don't want fan type analysis that I provide. Yet now that's all they want. That's all they want. They've looked at the TalkSport model that's been in place since that channel's existed and gone, yeah, we'll have some of that then. We'll just be a clickbait nonsense. Yeah. You know, for me, back in the day, Sky was the premium. Yeah. You know, okay, Keys and Gray did what they did and they're, you know, quote unquote shitty people. But they were the premium. I mean, Soccer Saturday, if Arsenal weren't on a Saturday, I still watch Soccer Saturday because the laughs, like Stelling, you know, okay, he was severely ill, but George Best on it was brilliant. You know, like you said, McClintock, all of that, you know, they were great. But now, Soccer Saturday, I won't, not just because Jeff Stelling's on it, but I won't touch it with a barge pole because I'm paying nearly £100 a month to listen to Clinton Morrison and Chris Boyd. No, thank you. No, thank you. I'm going to listen to Lee Hendry talk about how Odegaard can do something better. Behave yourself. Lee Hendry, are you having a laugh?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a shame because I think it's not just the commentary. I think the way Prime do it, it's just quite nice. It's quite refreshing. Yeah, and I do like the way that they were showing the games. But wow, that's a real shame. So is that from actually next season? Then that's
yeah. Wow. What I like about Prime, Neil, is that before, you know, they go quite early before a game starts. So there's like nearly an hour and 40, maybe an hour and 35 minutes before a game's actually on. But the packages that they give for both sides. You know, when you put Sky on now, Arsenal can be on a Super Sunday, but the game that's on before or whatever, they'll talk about that for age, or they'll talk about teams that played on Saturday. It's like, oh, hang on a sec, I don't support them sides. I want to see something about Arsenal. And then you'll get a 5-minute video of, I don't know, that player that they met earlier in the week. But they've probably done that interview so earlier on in the week that it's not really relevant to the game that's coming up. But with Prime, you've got a proper, decent, you know, you get decent amount of packages. I'm a bit gutted. Yeah, I'm a bit gutted that they've lost the Premier League. I know they've got more Champions League, and also I think, they've lost out on this round, but they're not going to go away. I think they're going to find something. They're definitely going to find something else because that needs to be done. Sky and all them have had too much of a mantle for too long, and someone needs to come in there and shake it up a bit. That's how I feel.
Yeah, no, spot on. Sky's a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, I do usually mute what I got over it, but if I hear Dixon's voice, sometimes I'll turn it up just to not, be in disbelief again about what I'm hearing coming.
What is it with our players, Matt? Like I said the other day, when I couldn't watch the Fulham game because I had to do what I needed to do, I watched it the next day. I wanted to watch the full highlights to get the game, so I watched it on Arsenal.com. Nigel Winterburn, shocking commentator. Shocking commentator. I mean, the only ones who are, again, because it was, he was on Prime the other day. Theo Walcott, Neil, brilliant as always, isn't he? Yeah. And Upson, sometimes when I get Upson, he's not too shabby either.
Yeah.
I think again, he's just, from grateful for what we did.
Yeah,
He'd never got all them big moves if it weren't for us.
We're not asked to be like ridiculous, like Phil Thompson for Liverpool or something. We're not asked to be like that, but just understand where you come from when it comes to something like, just basic stuff. Like, just the criticism is constant and it's like relentless in a game where I'm like, they haven't touched the ball. What are you going on about? Like, just stop going on. You're just moaning about everything. And he was really moaning about, the booing. Oh, I just don't get it. What is going on with football these days? Booing Amari Hutchinson. I went, do you know what happened in your days? Do you know what happened and who was booed? I went, stop, Lee. Stop. Okay, stop. Okay, there was fights constantly in games with you. You get banned left, right and centre. I had no issue with it, but let's not act like booing is suddenly the premises for some, come on.
Well, I saw more stuff from people about Amari Hutchinson being booed by Arsenal fans than I did about Jack Grealish being booed by Villa fans. Because that the other week was absolutely ridiculous. I'm like, the whole basis of your club now being in the Champions League and being able to buy all these players under Emery and you wouldn't have got it. You went down, he stayed with you, got you promoted, stayed with you an extra season because people were putting bids in the year they got promoted, but you stayed with them for an extra year, kept them up, albeit on the last day against West Ham, if you remember. I think he either scored or got 2 assists or something in the game to keep them up against West Ham. Then he left. And you're still booing him? But yeah, I'm like, this guy, Amari Hutchinson, was talked about to such a high extent and level as being one of the next ones to break through at Arsenal. All of us were like, oh my God, Amari Hutchinson. He thinks the grass is going to be greener going to Chelsea's stockpiling players, especially Wingers Association.
Yeah.
And he didn't get
one game, did he? That was it.
He had to go down a division, work his arse off to help get Ipswich promoted. He's come up. He's played very well in the league. I still think he's a good player. But the other night, but you thought the grass was going to be greener. It wasn't. And also, you're diving. He wouldn't have got booed. Okay, I can get, like you said about the Chelsea Association. But it weren't just that. It was because you were diving.
Yeah.
And blatantly diving.
Fouls too, from what I remember.
Yeah, and it wasn't punished.
Yeah. But I didn't have a massive issue with the ref. I mean, he got those right. He called it out. You got to book him though. You can't. If that's a foul, you're booking him and giving a penalty.
I've got 2 instances.
Dives.
I've got 2 instances as well, Jack, where in the first half, and I think it's Ben Johnson who was the ex-West Ham player. Well, they're just pushing players off and I've got people
in the corners.
Yeah, and I've got people going, "Oh, come on, you're soft. You're like, stop being soft." But we got told that Adama Traore doing that, where you're just blatantly shoving people off the pitch, like you're making no attempt for the ball. You're just going, get out type thing. Yeah. That's penalties.
Right.
So that just completely got overlooked there because he took 2 out just by going bang. He pushed one into the other one
as well in the second half.
Exactly. And that one from Delap on Gabriel.
Yeah.
You know Gabriel don't go down like that with ease.
No.
He does not. But I'm like, he's got 2 hands round his hips and all he's doing is planting him to the ground.
Yeah. I'm fine with it. If you don't want to give those as penalties, I'm fine with it. But don't moan about us standing on the goalkeeper's toes. That's all I'm going to say. Because if we stand on the goalkeeper's toes and score from a header, all I see is, is this illegal from Arsenal? Should they be doing it? There's a whole Sky Sports analysis from it with Howard Webb, all the refs going, I don't know actually. Maybe we should readjust the whole rule book for Arsenal Football Club's corners. And I'm like, okay, but you're fine with them doing clotheslines on us in the box. That's fine. Give that away. So again, it's looking at it. If you're not going to give penalties for that, that's fine. To me, it's a blatant penalty. But again, if you're going to say that's in the box contact or whatever you want to call it, don't moan at us for crowding round a goalkeeper who can't be bothered to move off his feet because he's got glue stuck to his studs. I don't that's fine. So it goes 2 ways. But let's get on to, obviously big problem with the Saka stuff. Saka injury, worst case scenario now because surgery means close to a grade 3 or it's a distal avulsion, which means the tendon at the distal avulsion of the hamstring has pulled off the fibula bone or off the tibia bone, and that means it has to be reattached. So that plays into the account of the rehab becomes a lot more slower and complicated, and I know Arteta says many weeks, more than 2 months, but I'm not really sure beyond that. I think it's going to be more than that, yeah, for sure. It's some people say March, it may even be towards further than that. And I think, to be honest, I think me and James talked about this just before Neil came on offline, but we said was that even if let's say he comes back March, we're not going to get the Saka back this season that we've had for the last 2 or 3 years, because even if he comes back, you're like, he's looking good, he's looking ready, he's looking fresh. You're going to have to manage his time and ease him back in. You can't get the Saka back that's played, ridiculous.
And when is he ever managed Bukayo Saka's time?
Right.
We saw the graphic. We put the graphic in the WhatsApp chat.
Yeah.
96%, 92% one the year, 94% the other season. He's his most relied on and most used player. I'm not necessarily I've seen a lot of people go, this is Arteta's fault. And now, I'm not going to necessarily say it's his fault because he's kept playing him and this is what's going to happen. This was eventually always going to happen, etc., etc. But I can portion some blame in the fact that the rotation options that he has had and he's never used, that's on him. That's an injury can happen to anybody. I look at Dean Ashton. Dean Ashton went away with England, got tackled by Sean Wright-Phillips, his career's over. Anything can happen at any time in football. But I will portion some blame in the lack of depth to maybe ease the load on him hasn't been there, not even just from a Arsenal standpoint, but also from an England standpoint. He's been over-relied upon by England, just as well as he has for Arsenal, and that's purely because of his quality. So, he's a victim, really, of his own success because that's made him over-relied upon. But yeah, for me, Jack, I said it before. I know, Neil, you weren't. You didn't join us straight away before we started recording. I don't think he's going to play again this season. I think he's out for the rest of the season, Saka, now, because, like you said, you're not getting the player that you think is going to come back. But also, I think he needs that break. I really do.
Yeah, and the only shining light here, Neil, and there isn't really one, but is. I was not convinced that we were going to sign anyone in January, but things like this may force our hand a little bit to do a Jose Reyes-like moment. I'm pulling from, far long ago in a January window. I believe it was a January window. I'm almost certain it was. Yeah. Where we're going to have to move funds forward but we don't have that replacement. And in order to get that, you're going to have to pay premium in January, and we have to be prepared to do that. If we're not, though, Neil, and if we're not, and it's definitely a possibility that we're not, because it's not something we typically do, I can't see anything but an inevitable drop-off. I mean, I just can't. I know we've talked about all the options, all the possibilities. I can't see anything but an inevitable drop-off because he's that important to us. I mean, he's just a key player in this team, and it's the same as if I was arguing this with Liverpool fans. They were like, "Oh yeah, but we lost Alisson this season. What are you talking about?" And I was like, certain clubs have single points of failure. So all clubs have single points of failure in their team, and some clubs only have one player. They might be lucky enough. Some it's two, some it's three. I think with ours, there's three this season, in my opinion: Saka, Odegaard and David Raya. And the reason I say David Raya this season and he wasn't last season is because we had Ramsdale last season. Now we have Neto. We've never seen him play, and I can almost guarantee he's not with his feet anywhere near the level of Raya, and probably anywhere near the level of Ramsdale. So we'd have to completely change the way we play, and that's where our squad weakened a little bit this season for sure, because we only had two last season, in my opinion. And Liverpool's are Van Dijk and Salah. It's not Alisson, because they've got their second goalkeeper is arguably the best second goalkeeper in the league, and they've known that for a year or two. He's wanted to leave for a year or two to play. He'd probably get a top 8 club easily to start with. So their two single points of failure are Salah. They have no replacement truly for Salah. Yep. No one even knows who they play there. Maybe Elliott, might be Diaz. They'd be talking like us. And Van Dijk, who I think is Rodri levels of single points of failure for them. And they didn't buy that, so they were like, no. I was like, you're not understanding. I'm just explaining what your squad is and what our squad is, and I'm telling you from our point of view, these are our single points of failure. Right? If we lost Rice, I don't think it's a single point of failure. We've got enough around him. If we lost Saliba now, possibly, but if Ben White was fit, no, because you know what I mean. So it depends on where you're at with the squad and stuff like that. But I can't see anything but an inevitable drop off unless we go big in January. Neil, am I being pessimistic? No, I don't think you're being pessimistic, because we've got the events of this season actually to use as a bench or a guide, and that is Odegaard. What happened when he was out? We dropped off, didn't we? It's only when he came back that then we started creating a little bit more and being a little bit more effective up front. Saka, I said on the last pod, I think he's even bigger than Odegaard, and Odegaard, yes, whilst both of them could arguably be, two of the best players in the league at the moment, I still think Saka's a bigger player than Odegaard, because Saka did step up when Odegaard went missing, with the captain's armband and with his play and his responsibility. And it doesn't matter what the situation is. We've seen it time and time again over the last 3 seasons, certainly.
that he will pull in the numbers no matter what, whether we're playing good, bad, or average. He always gets the numbers. I don't think there's a player in our squad that can do that and replicate that. And in that being the case, if Odegaard and the likes don't step up, Rice was talking about in his interviews, going back to that again, that we all have to step up. Yes, that's true. And you all may step up, but I don't know whether they're going to step up right to that top rung of that ladder. That's the thing, because Saka was unbelievable. Do you remember all those pods we used to do where there would be this maybe a 5% drop off in his play, but it would seem cataclysmic because he was that good. So we would pick up on it. We think, Jesus, why is he having an off game? Well, actually, he's not having a bad game, but he's not having a Saka game. That's the difference. So, no, I agree with you. If we don't replace him, I think we're looking at top 4. And we're not looking for anything more than that. Hopefully top 4. But I think if we can get one of the players that you two will surely mention in a second, there could be a chance of still maintaining a level, but I don't know whether we'll be able to maintain the level that Saka was able to bring. And you know what? The funny thing is, you two have talked about this, about his return. I was just thinking about it yesterday. Well, it's yesterday in the during the day, and I thought, even if Saka does come back in March or April, his season's done. Because it's going to take time to get back to the level you were at, and the season finishes second week of May, third week of May, it's done. So the season's gone. So yeah, either we buy big or buy clever, or someone has to step up. But I'm afraid it's not going to be enough as far as I can see.
Jack, can I just lynch a little bit onto what Neil said there? Because again, it's as always, my neck's hurting from agreeing with you both so much and nodding all the time. Neil makes a great point there in that there were games where Bukayo Saka, he's not having a great game, but he'll pull something out of his arse. He'll pull an assist or a goal out of his arse from nowhere. And Neil, you mentioned it a couple of pods back. I think it might have been with Mike, where you said, since Alexis Sanchez, we haven't got a player that, regardless of what's going on, just in a boom like that, oh my God, he's shanked one top corner from 25 yards out, or he's driven and got a penalty and done a chipped penalty or something like that. That's just ridiculous. Saka is the closest that we had to that. And that's now gone. And again, great point where you say, look at what's happened this season and base off that. Regardless of how well they've done in the last couple of weeks, none of them are replicating that. So you need to buy somebody that's going to either make that load up in terms of just overall bombardment of chances that a Havertz or a resurgent in a way Jesus is going to score, or this guy's going to score on his own. So that's what you need to either get high output goals or high output and assists. That's what you need, because again, Neil, like you said, if Saka comes back March or April, season's over. It's even before then, Neil. We've got 9 games in 29 days in January. We could be out of everything in those 9 days. So you need someone ASAP, because this month you're now competing on 4. I'm not whinging. We're competing on 4 fronts, but that could all be over in 29 days' time.
The worst time we could have lost him, James. The worst time.
Exactly.
The only silver lining, and it's the smallest, minuscule one, is he's finally getting the rest which he so badly needed. That's it. That's the only small silver lining. And
it's pre-January, meaning there is a possibility, small one, that we can do something.
Yeah.
So you're saying that?
It's so important because, again, like I said, and I mentioned it last season and got pelters for it, but to go another year without any silverware, I don't think I can forgive Arteta for that, Jack. I really don't. And I hate to bring that conversation up on what's been a somewhat positive podcast, but that's how I feel. I would be like, I know he's very, very good at PR, but I'm like, you're going to have to give me something amazing to spin out of this. Yeah.
In saying that, a lot of his comments about Saka and about the squad certainly the last week, some people might say he's talking to the board like he's done previously. We know he's done that. We've felt that before in him kind of doing that, like kind of sort of trying to speak through the media to the board. I'm not saying he fully does that, but I think there's been part of that at times. But so in saying that, there's been a little bit of talk about Fabio Vieira because he got left out of the Porto squad. But there's also been the manager just spoke and he says, look, I cannot give up some principles of mine that he didn't meet, but Fabio Vieira knows me well and we rely on him. He will be available to play again next week. There's a lot of people after that calling me out because I've basically said, we shouldn't be recalling him. Whether we do or don't, I don't see the point. I don't see the point. And let me explain why. I like Fabio Vieira as a footballer. I think he's a good footballer, and I actually think he could offer him something. But Mikel Arteta doesn't. He doesn't trust him. There's no, in the last 12 months, that the utmost proof is that he does not. He demoted him to the under-23s after a game. He doesn't trust him. He brought him back, barely touched the pitch after January, like genuinely. So and people might say, well, he's done well for Porto. He's not really. He's had two goals, 2 assists in 20 games-ish, 15 games, I think. He's their number 10. And now he's not meeting basic principles from Porto's coach in an inferior league. What are you doing? Why are we calling him? You just said a week ago that Wanyeri is... We loaned Fabio Vieira out because we trust Wanyeri more. It wouldn't make any sense to recall him. All these big accounts going, we can't have any attacking players on loan at this point in time. And I went, why? Why just have him sit on our bench? I was like, he didn't use Wanyeri yesterday. It's not like he's never started a Premier League game. We're depleted, and we've got this 17-year-old wizard who we're not using anyway. So we're not that depleted, are we? So what do you think is going to happen in January?
The amount of money that we would need to spend on Cowangate to get Fabio Vieira to a level where he can survive the Premier League will be more than it will cost to get a winger or a forward. I'm telling you, mate, there ain't enough creatine in the world to get Fabio Vieira ready for the Premier League, mate.
No, we're going to have to get him more.
And I liked him, but I'm sorry, I tried, and I'm like, you're a good player, but not for this league. I like, unless you amass Ronnie Coleman levels of body mass, you ain't cutting it, mate. You ain't cutting it. And I know people go, oh, Bernardo Silva, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but he's tenacious. Like we talked about with Skelly earlier in the podcast, he uses his body well. Fabio Vieira ain't got that sort of brain to use his body like that, mate. He just gets crunched, and that's it. He's like, oh no, I'm not getting hurt anymore. We can't have players like that. We've moved on from that. You can't play for Arsenal thinking, oh, I'm going to get hurt now. No, we need full commitment. Yeah. So, no, I wouldn't be recalling him. If he does get recalled, then I'll back him 100%. I'll back anyone that's wearing a shirt. But I wouldn't be recalling him. No.
And what do you think is going to happen in January? If you have to put your hand on your heart, we always get this wrong.
We're signing, mate.
And do you think it's from within the league or outside the league? If you had to think, if you had to say.
I hope it's from within, because I don't want adaptation. I want somebody that's going to come in and fight. I mean, this is it, Jack, is that what's it going to be? Is it going to be from a wide position, or is it going to be a centre forward? Because,
at this point, it's about who's available, isn't it, really? Exactly.
I mean, there's still murmurs of it being the centre forward and not the winger.
Yeah. So I wouldn't have a problem with that. It's about quality up there.
Yeah.
If it's Cunha as opposed to Mbeumo or Kudos because there's an availability there.
It's the ban though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the ban.
Cunha for me is written off. As much as I'd love him, can't see it happening with that ban now. Because again, that 9 games in 29, that you need somebody, let's basically narrow it down to it's going to be 8 games in 29 days because we're not signing someone for Brentford.
And he'll be banned for almost all of them, probably.
Yeah. So you after Brentford, if we haven't seen any movement, I would be a bit shaky because you need to get someone in ASAP.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're going to do it, not only do you need to you need to at least be moving early. even if you don't do it early. Because if you're not moving early, then I don't think this isn't one of those where you go, well, let's just see what happens in the last few days of the window, because you've lost a whole month there. And I know it's not easy to do these deals. I'm not expecting something to happen January 1st, but like you said, the movement of it. But for me, I kind of agree with you. I'm at the point where we need 2 attackers anyway, minimum. So the one in January doesn't have to be the one. It just has to be one that can contribute to our front line and has proven goals and assists. Ideally from wide areas, but yeah, it could be a central player if we decide to shift Jesus out wide as our wide option for the rest of the season or something like that. But I'd be looking far more within the league. I don't really see the outside the league option, but it could come out of nowhere. But I think we've got to move. I'm just praying in the next sort of week or so we hear something from like Ornstein saying Arsenal are looking to sign, somewhere because I do really think it's essential for us. Like you said, the injuries we've had have been ridiculous, and now in the front line we're already depleted. And like you said, we needed to sign someone there in the summer and we didn't get anyone. So it's not like we're thinking this is on the spot. We've been saying this for many windows, haven't we, really? But so let's see what will happen. But we got Brentford away on Wednesday and then Brighton away. I don't know if we'll do a podcast between those because New Year in the short time frame before the Brighton game, which I believe is on Saturday. So let's get your predictions for both. Neil, these are 2 really, really tough games against 2 really good teams, very different teams as well. Brentford away Wednesday. They have a couple of injuries themselves as well. I think they might have lost their goalkeeper, their first choice goalkeeper on against Brighton. So what's your prediction for Brentford away and Brighton away, Neil?
Cool. Yeah, 2 tough games as you said, but I think we've dispelled the hoodoo of Brentford anyway in the last couple of seasons. So I think we'll be okay. Let's go back to being positive. It's the last half hour. It was doom and gloom about Saka. Let's try and be positive again, and let's do a win. I think we might concede though. I think we might concede a goal. I'm going to go 2-1 Brentford, a 2-1, a tie 2-1. And I will say, because he needs it, Odegaard for that game. And then for Brighton, if you want me to do Brighton before James goes, I'll pull out another one away. I'll go one more with that. I know it's tough. No, do you know what? I'll do 2-1 again. I'll do 2-2-1s. And for that one, I will say Kai Havertz again. So Odegaard 2-1 and then Havertz 2-1 against Brighton.
Nice, take that all day. James, what's your predictions? 2 tough away games.
Yeah, so Brentford, other than Nottingham Forest beating them, they've got the best home record in the league, I believe, along with us, one of the best. So I think they're going to be very, very tough. I'm going to go 1-0, same as last season, Kai Havertz. Same as the last game.
Season.
I think we're going to scrape it 1-0. And then Brighton, as much as I, give them plaudits and I love some of their players, and I think their manager has been, very, very good. I don't like how he was after the Arsenal game. So I'm like, I hope we go there. Yeah, I hope we go there with an intention to, give this guy a bit. And I'm going to go like Neil, I'm going to go 2-1 against Brighton. I'd love it to be Odegaard because I feel that he needs a goal. But I'm going to just stick to the tried and trusted. And I think Gabriel's going to make amends for the header that he didn't get against Ipswich. And I think he's going to score from a set piece against Brighton. I think Gabriel's just going to bang, like we've seen all season. I think he's just going to rise above somebody and just smash it.
Yeah, love that. Fingers crossed.
But yeah, two wins to go back on what Neil said, bring the positivity back into the... So yes, nice 6 points there.
That'd be massive, it really would.
I'm waiting for you to be even more positive and go, Brighton, it'll be 2-1 and our new signing's going to score. I don't know who it is, it'll be the new signing.
He'll be in on January 2nd. It's already happened. We've had it done for a week. I'll go 1-0 as well against Brentford. 1-0. I think it's going to be a tough game. I'll go 1-0. I think we'll see a couple of changes to the lineup because we've got to rotate at some point because we've got a lot of games thick and fast. So I'll go 1-0 and Timber. Go Timber for that one. Don't usually pick a play that. And then Brighton away, they play a bit more, don't they? They attack a bit more. So I'll go 3-2 Arsenal. 3-2 Arsenal for that one. And Odegaard. and go Odegaard for that one. We need Odegaard to score, don't we, in these games? But we need a winner. So I'll take any of our predictions.
Arteta won't like these predictions because he doesn't want any goals or shots on target or anything.
I know. It's just. I know he doesn't. But like you say, it'll be if it is 3-2 to us, it'll be 2 goals to them from 0.01 xg. And he'll go, what's going on? Haven't been in a half. How's it happened? Like that. And it's to be fair, the way he is, I bet he must watch some of our games and be pulling his hair out, going, "How are we conceded? I've controlled every part of this game." And do you know what I mean? Like, because sometimes you're watching it going, no chance they're not getting near a goal, and suddenly it's just we sometimes we do get maximum punishment for so little. Sometimes in some games where you're just like it's quite incredible.
Could you imagine Christmas dinner at his house? It must have been immaculate.
Yeah.
Because how he is a stickler for everything being precise and on time. I bet you the crackers were done at a certain point.
Yeah.
This was done. They ate at 3. They were watching Wallace and Gromit without, no more food being done.
Yeah. Every roast potato measured.
Exactly. Yeah.
All of that. Yeah. I can see it.
Stockpiling on parsnips. Something like that.
Yeah.
Not got enough carrots and everything else, but I got plenty of parsnips here.
Parsnips. Yeah. I've never been a parsnip person personally, but Mickey might be. Not big a fan of the sweetness. But boys, it's been a pleasure. We're at Purely Arsenal FP on Twitter. Happy New Year, Gooners. Hopefully it is a happy New Year for us. So let's see. There are some games tomorrow, so we'll be keeping a little watch on those. But ultimately, it's about the Arsenal. So let's see how we do. Fingers crossed for the January transfer window. Wishing Bukayo Saka well. As well, it's a very frustrating one there, but hopefully the team can step up for him. Neil, James, been a pleasure. At Purely Arsenal FP, follow us on YouTube as well. Subscribe, like, appreciate it. Up the Arsenal, keep the faith.